So, bypassing iCloud locked iPhones, it's a sticky subject for sure, especially because, well, a lot of people asking this could be using stolen iPhones and just want to get more use out of them, or just want to sell them off and see if they can make some kind of profit off of what they stole. However, it's not always like this, and in my case, neither of the two iCloud-locked iPhones I have are stolen, thankfully. So yeah, I have an iCloud-locked iPhone 5 and an iCloud-locked iPhone 5S. The ultimate goal when it comes to bypassing iCloud on an iPhone is to just get rid of the setup app, or damage it, or disable it, to the point where it will not ask for activation lock. So on the iPhone 5, this is very easy, as there are exploits available for this phone that will allow you to just delete the setup app even without jailbreaking. However, for me, I didn't really want to use an iPhone 5 for an iCloud-locked iPhone because I, like using things that are newer than iOS 10. I'm still going to go forward with the bypass, but this phone I likely will not be using very often as it doesn't really have much use to me. So with the iCloud all bypassed on the iPhone 5, we're going to move on to the iPhone 5S, which is a lot harder. Now you can actually use the same method to iCloud bypass an iPhone 5S as long as that 5S is running iOS 10. And you can downgrade the iPhone 5S to iOS 10, but that makes it just about as useful as an iPhone 5. So at this point, I decided I didn't really want to settle for that, especially because I, want to use my 5S for something useful. I tried using the same exploit with the iPhone 5S, just running 12 instead of 10, and while the script pretended to work, once you boot up the iPhone, you're still greeted to the same setup screen that blocks you from even continuing to use the phone. So the method that Sliver will provide is not going to work for iOS 12. So I decided to look into other methods, and I stumbled across a tool on Reddit made by Meowcat454, which deletes the setup app on iPhones using, I think, the checkrain exploit, but it does not actually require a jailbreak to use, as it hijacks the phone in DFU mode and then gains root access to the file system, and then that's when you can delete the setup app. However, it's not so cut and dry. From when I tried using this, it didn't work most of the time. The first part of the setup seemed to work just fine. You have to create the RAM disk for your iPhone model, which for me is iPhone 6,1, since I have an iPhone 5S that is a US model, though it's seemingly a different model, which confused me. I tried using the built-in PwnDFU utility, and it didn't even finish sending the RAM disk to the device. It just froze at 70%. And then I just didn't get anywhere after that. The phone didn't turn on, it didn't even respond to anything, so that method clearly wasn't going to work. This actually made me stuck for a very long time, as I didn't really know what else to try, but I decided to go ahead and dink around with some of the other PwnDFU utilities, and after looking up on some forums, people are saying, well, the problem you're having is that the phone is not actually entering PwnDFU mode, so clearly the PwnDFU utility that came with it doesn't work properly. So I was like, okay, I'll try the PwnDFU method that came with Sliver. So I reopened Sliver and tried using the PwnDFU method that supports, and that actually worked. I got much further than I did before, and it was actually able to send the entire RAM disk to the device. However, now the device wasn't happy, as it was kernel panicking as it started up, saying only one static trust cache supported. However, I prevailed and was like, okay, if it's liking the trust cache that comes in the stock IPSW, what if I replace that with the one that it gave me? And that worked. The iPhone was actually very happy with that, and before I knew it, I had root access to the file system with read and write. Or so I thought. I'll get back to that in a minute. So once I actually had gotten into the device, I SSH'd, went in, and deleted the setup app, and tried to start it up, but it didn't work. I still was greeted to the same setup screen, and when I restarted it and went back into the SSH mode, the file was still there. I went and deleted it again. It did not do anything. I get back into SSH mode, and the file is still there.
At this point, I decided that was enough. I had just completely given up on at least trying to figure this out for myself. So I went to the subreddit that specializes into this stuff and commented, just wondering why I was running into this problem, and the creator of the tool reached out to me and said, this does not work with iOS 12. So, this is how the iPhone 5S is right now, stuck on iOS 10. Now, does that mean it's useless?
No, not at all, actually. I've been using this thing all the time, as it's a very competent music device, and mixing that with Touch ID makes it just much more convenient to unlock than the iPhone 5. And yes, if you're curious, the iPhone 5 also has the iCloud unlocked with iOS 10. I don't have a passcode set up on it just yet, and I probably will do that later, but... So yeah, it's unfortunate that this iPhone 5S is just left to the way it is, with this device just being stuck on iOS 10. But it's not the most useless thing in the world either, as I've been able to sign into my mail, use Apple Music and the App Store, and any third-party app. So this thing's not a total brick. There are some quirks here and there with it, but big bummer that I wasn't able to get iOS 12 working on this thing. There are ways to do it using exploits, but I do not want to go through with those exploits because they require that you have a pin-locked SIM, and I just don't have any spare SIM cards on me right now. Plus, even then, I want the exploit to be completely untethered, meaning that I don't need to do something stupid to make this thing actually work properly. There is a tethered version of the iOS 12 iCloud unlock, but I'm not going to use that because I don't want to have to hook up to a computer every single time I need to use the device after it gets shut off or restarted or whatever. Plus, that method also requires a jailbreak. The iOS 10 method here is completely untethered as it deletes the setup app and iOS 10 doesn't complain. So with that in mind, I think that if you have an iCloud locked iPhone 5S, that iOS 10 is probably your best bet on one of these things, just because not only does it make the device faster, but it also is totally untethered. I'm not even jailbroken on this phone. I could be, but I'm not, as iOS 10, unfortunately, when it's not activated, does not support sideloading. So yeah, what can you do? I would jailbreak this thing if I could, but yeah, I can't. So is this device useless to me? No, not at all. In fact, I'm actually really happy that this device can serve a purpose in my life, as it has all of the music that I listen to all downloaded within the music app. So if I go to my playlist here, you can see all of my songs here. For some reason it's not labeled, but all of my songs that I have on here are downloaded, and it's a 16 gig phone, but it still can store all of my music. Maybe in the future I'll get a bigger phone that can actually do all this, but this phone for now is perfect for it. And this thing actually has around 5 gigs of storage left, so it's not totally useless. Maybe in the future we'll see an exploit that allows the setup app on these devices to be completely removed. Thankfully, on the iPhone 5S, you can downgrade to iOS 10. If you have an iPhone 6, you are out of luck. You will need to do a tethered bypass, or if you're going to be doing the untethered bypass, you're going to need a pin-locked SIM card, as there is no way to downgrade to iOS 10 on those devices, unfortunately. So that's about it for this video. It ended up actually being a lot shorter than I thought it would be. I plan to release a video on actually using this thing and how it fares for maybe a week or so. I'm not going to be like strictly holding myself to use this because this thing is really not the most useful thing, especially being iCloud locked. You don't get iMessage, FaceTime, iCloud, none of that stuff works. So with that being said, it'll likely just be a video on, is it actually viable to bypass the iCloud lock on these devices and at least get some kind of use out of them? It's better than it being a brick, so that's a plus, obviously. So yeah, before I end this video off, I'm going to say a huge thank you to Meowcat454 for making the RAM disk tool. It is actually useful. I'm going to assume that it does work on different phones, like with newer iOS versions. I'm not totally sure what its use case would be if it wasn't working on newer devices. From what I saw online, newer versions of iOS this works with, so I don't know if this is just a quirk with iOS 12, or maybe they did something with 12 that actually was more secure and then they pulled it back. I don't know what they did, but yeah, at least for now, this iPhone 5S will serve me very well as long as Apple Music continues to be supported on iOS 10, considering the fact that it runs on every iOS version that it released with, and that hasn't changed. I'm going to assume we have a long time left for iOS 10. But yeah, bypassing iCloud locks. Man, is it a pain.